Right, let's do a brake job on this 2018 Nissan Frontier. There's a lot of years that are the same, so you might find yours are the same. The parts interchange a lot for a lot of years. This is the V6. I don't know if the four cylinder is any different, but they're probably the same. I would not doubt that they were all the same for the price of the brakes. For this job, we'll be using the car lift, but you can do this on the ground. This is much easier to film on. All right, these are a simple caliper in the front. The rear is going to take a little. Going to want to watch the rear part, especially. I believe those are twist in. I haven't looked at them that close yet. I haven't done a brake job on one of these yet. I've done a few other cars. Remove the caliper. Oh, these are dual piston. The big boys. So we'll have fun with those. I'll show you a trick for those. These are almost to the wear bar. Not a little early to sell a brake job, but yeah, I guess it's okay. You're probably making some noise. That chunk out of there. And they're hot spotted. So I'm going to talk to her about, she drives in the mountains. Talked about using low gears coming down, so we'll rest hard on the brakes. All right, so 14's up there. Let's get this one. I think that's a 19, I guess. And of course, these are much tighter. Obviously, when you put them back on, make sure they're much tighter. Bigger bolts, more tight. You can get the torque specs on them if you want. I don't usually need to do that. A little hard on the next ratchet. All right, remove. Now let me show you a trick. This is something you're going to want to know. On twin piston calipers, I always use this tool. All right, so this thing right here, they had these on Amazon. I've seen. They used to only have them on like Mack or Snap-on tool trucks, so they were hard to find. But now you can just go on Amazon, click in. It's not a really cheap tool, but I mean, I paid a lot for it back then. But the reason you can use like a C-clamp and push these back in. You can use a large pair of pliers to put them back in. But when it's twin pistons, sometimes you push one in and the other one goes back out. So using this tool is really the best way to push the pistons back in. So yeah, I would recommend getting one of these if you're doing your own brake job first time. Even just bite the bullet, figure out part of it, look at how much labor is, and you're still going to save enough money to make it worthwhile. And then you got the tool. So what I'll do is I'll take the old pads and push it back in as far as I can with them. Then I'll get the new ones, which we'll get out right now, and then I'll push it the rest of the way in. All right, let's try it with the new pads, see if I get them all the way in or not. Sometimes I just take sometimes I'll just take one of the old pads with the new ones in there and use it as a spacer. May need to do that on this. Let me make sure they're all the way in. I just want to make sure that those pistons go all the way in. Hang on a second. And because the square seal needs to get all the way in so that it'll twist the other direction on the inside of the calipers. There's a square seal in there, and that's what that is, like a spring is what it does. Is a square seal that's inside the calipers will twist, and when it twists like that, it locks, it makes the piston want to return, and that's the spring that returns your brake. So sometimes you'll get an old set of calipers that are really, pretty old, and the square seal will wear out, and then that's when you need to have the calipers rebuilt. And typically not on the first or second brake job. It's usually down the road a little bit further. So You just gotta kind of know. You look at the pads, you'll see them kind of wearing funny and not, you know, or one side's really worn, the other side isn't. Then that kind of tells you it's time to do the calipers. So that's all the way out. They're all the way in. We'll go ahead and set up for the pads to go back on. We'll bring you back in. Right, these are what they call hot spotted, and that's from getting your brakes a little too hot. She drives up in the mountains, so she needs to start using low gear coming downhill because she's getting her brakes a little too hot, and that may be the reason that they sold them. They're kind of, I can say they're premature, but they're kind of on the edge. The wear indicators weren't touching yet. You can see that little metal bar right there. That's called a wear indicator. And when that's rubbing on the rotor, that's when it's just, that is time, you know. But it's, you know, look how close that is to, let me get you up a little closer so you can really see. Yeah, right there. So if you can see how close that is, there was quite a bit of wear left on these, but I'm sure she was getting the steering wheel vibration from the rotors being warped because of going downhill. So I'll talk to her about using low gear coming downhill. So if you're up in the mountains, you should drop it into a lower gear. So instead of being in drive, you want to be in like whatever the next gear is lower than that when you shift. If you know your automatic shifter, you put it in drive, you go down one, and that'll, whatever that is usually, that's what you want to use when you're going downhill. Sometimes two. I even sometimes go down two when I'm in real steep mountain road. And that way you're not using your brakes, you're using your engine to slow down. Real quick, a couple things I always do is I only do one side at a time. And then always, these are new rotors. I could get them machined, and it would, you know what, if you have a commercial account at like O'Reilly Auto Parts, it's so cheap to buy the new ones. It's almost the same price as just using this thing as a holder. Get this one on. Come on. Be good. And then it's almost the same price as paying for the machining. And since she drives in the mountains, I was like, hey, let's just put new ones on. It's just worth it. All right, so that's done. But the reason you do one at a time is because when you push these caliper pistons in on this side, sometimes the other ones will push out further and you'll push them all the way out. You don't want to do that. You got fluid everywhere, then you probably should rebuild them. Whenever mine come apart, I rebuild them. I just either or buy rebuilt ones. You know, now the rebuilt kits probably cost more than the actual rebuilt caliper. So, because once you get that square seal out past it, you know, it's just a disaster. You probably should just replace it. So anyway, we'll put these back on. Of course, you find your torque specs for all this stuff. I don't have it. So, and then these are original ones. They have new ones in the kit. And I don't know if I should just go with OEM. Look at the wear on them. I look at how much wear's on them. Sometimes the replacement ones are not as good quality as the original. So make your own decision on whether to replace these or not. But that's up to you. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I think I'm just going to put these on and decide in a few minutes. So real quick, one of the things I do is I'll use some of this Mega Black. It works really well as a thread locker. I use it as a lot of things. I'll put a little bit on, especially on the caliper mount bolts for the bracket mount bolts. I'll put just a little on the threads. And what that does is it works great as a thread locker. It'll last and work better than actually using blue Loctite. Some people use blue Loctite, but I use this. That's just my thing. If you want to do it however you want to do it, that's fine. Some people don't use anything on these, but sometimes it just depends on the year, make, model of the car. whether they are an issue. So anyway, I'll get that on off camera. I'll bring you right back in. So as an insurance, I use this CRC disc brake quiet. I've had a few of these. These are from O'Reilly Auto Parts, the Brake Best. Maybe they're not the brake best, but I don't know. They had some noise issues. So what I do is I'll put a little thin layer of this underneath the shim. And what it's trying to do is to keep the shim from vibrating. And that vibration becomes a squeal when you... So I'll put some between here like that on the inside and the outside one. And then where the... You notice my hands are clean and dry even though I'm touching the pad. You shouldn't touch it with dirty, greasy hands. They're fairly clean. Clean enough. So where the caliper touches is about right. Looks like it's got a 3-position touch. So 2 on the outside. And I did that a little bit wrong. That's okay. We'll just kind of move it over here and then put a little bit over here and put some in the middle. So where the calipers touch, I put this on there as well, and try and not get it on the pads. So don't want to touch this stuff. And I'm going to go with the old shims because they seem to be in pretty good shape. A lot of times, sometimes you'll get them and they'll... Now these are fitting a little bit too tight. So you want them to fit tight, but I don't know. If they're too tight, then the pad will go crooked. That's not good. So let's I'm going to clean up this edge with a file a little bit, get some of that paint off of there. I'm finding that lately with these aftermarket pads. I'll take it off of this side because the wheel rotates that way, and where I want it to be tight is on this end. I'll just take a little bit of off there so it's a little bit, so it fits in nice and slides easy. All right, tried to do without touching it, but you know, well, that happens when you're dealing with this stuff on here. I should have dry fitted these. Let me dry fit the inner one. You never have this problem with pads, and now, so the wear indicator should be, and this is why you leave the other side attached. The wear indicator broke off, but I'm gonna make sure that it's on the same way as it came off. All right, so I'm having the same problem with this shoe. So I dry fitted this one, and it's too tight. So I'm just gonna take a little file, knock that off of there, and knock a little bit off of here so it fits in. Don't want it too loose. So it has to be nice and tight in there. If it vibrates, it's gonna make noise. All right, so it slides freely, but it's nice and tight. That's what we're looking for. Want it to be in there nice and tight. So I just take a little bit off of each end. Same thing I had to do on the other one. You know, like I said, 30 years ago, I never saw that. Who knows? Just the quality of parts has changed a bit. Sandwich this in between like that. There we go. It's about where the mating surface of the pistons are when they hit the caliper, or hit the, you can look at the old ones. Just look at the shims on here. And if you want to reduce noise, you can get the original ones, and you notice they have double shims on them. And the aftermarket ones have single. That's why I use this stuff, to make sure. It just helps. It's not a perfect fix, but it's better than not doing anything, I've found. It's nothing, you know, like I said, if you want to spend the money on the original ones, they're kind of expensive. Let me get that in there instead of having you guys watch me struggle like that. You're in my way. Okay, that's done. Those are on. Now, the next thing that I'll do on these is I'll check these. Now, these come out just like that, and you can replace all the grease on there if you want. These ones they have factory grease on them, and they're still in really good shape. So what I'll do is I'll just move them, make sure that they operate properly, they don't have any stiff spots in them. If they're like that, I'll run them just like that. I won't replace the grease. But that's, again, that's just how this is all how I do it. If you want to do it the way I do, you do it at your own risk. If you don't like the way I do it, then, you know, that's fine. Watch somebody else's video, or just, you know, open the manual and figure it out. That's fine. This is just how I do it. You assume all of the risk on your own brake job. This is just how I do the job. All right, so I tighten these ones up. Like I said, personally, I don't need to torque them because I know what the torque should be and I know the feel. So if you don't, get the book out. Know exactly how it's supposed to be like. These ones I don't put any Loctite on, and I don't usually have problems. The inner ones can back out, these ones usually don't, but like I said, that's my opinion, my job, and I'm taking the risk. So let's do the other side, same as the first. Maybe I'll speed you guys up, let you just kind of watch in the background. All right, so I was observing the rear ones. These are actually pretty easy. Shoot, I grabbed the wrong socket. Bring it back, bring you back in a second. These have a drum. Hopefully you guys are on. Okay, yeah. A drum style. I'm gonna loosen up the two for the caliper, get them off, same as the front. But I can just do them by hand while I'm talking so we don't hear the noise. But you just take these two off here, pull the caliper off, same as in the front. We're going to do the same tools, everything. Now the difference is, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. The difference is in the back you have the underneath the wheel. Well, these ones were pretty worn out. No, they weren't. Not that bad. There's inside here, there's some brake shoes for the emergency brake that you may or may not need to adjust. So you got to check your emergency brake and see if you need to adjust that. I've never done the adjustment on one of those. So back years ago, we always had an emergency brake was connected to the caliper. And that's what I was thinking this was going to be, but it's not. So it's the newer fangled stuff. I mean, it's probably been around for 20 years, and I just haven't had a car that needed it. So, you know, these ones aren't near as tight as in the front. So I can probably just take them off by hand. You could just use a ratchet. I'll use this thing. They have washers on them on the back. And like in the front, well, these are right near the wear indicator, so yeah, these are about time to go. Same thing as the front. You can. So inside here, these have a drum type system for the parking brake. So you want to inspect those and make sure you know that they're not. I mean, I can't tell that she's driven with the parking brake on. Doesn't look like it. They're really kind of thin shoes too. Look at the inside of the drum. See if there's any hot spots going on. So I got you guys up nice and close. If there's any hot spots going on in there, and then see how thick the shoes are. They're pretty thin, but I think they are pretty thin when they're brand, you know, with the way they're made. And what you want to do is to adjust. If you have to adjust the parking brake, you just take this little plug out right here. That's what I'm looking at right now, because I've never, like I said, I've never done that. And there's a little thing right here, right there, some little teeth on it. So you'll want to put the drum on, or this thing on and off a couple times while it's off, and then you reach a screwdriver or a adjustment tool if you have it, and just on this side you'll go clockwise. Let's see, clockwise is this way, so you'll go counterclockwise to open up the shoes, and on the other side it's probably going to be the opposite of that. So you just kind of look at here, this is a threaded area onto this. This is like a bolt down here, so it's going to thread onto it clockwise, and it'll shorten the shoes. So you want to go counterclockwise to make them wider until the e-brake is working properly. So I'm going to check the e-brake real quick and adjust it as needed. So, you know, that's something you have to do on the rear, and to make sure the e-brake is adjusted properly. You don't want, when you spin this around, you don't want the brake shoes dragging. These are brake shoes for the e-brake. You don't want them dragging on the drum. You want to just have to where you step on the e-brake and it works. And it doesn't look like on these, let me see, I don't think they're self-adjusting, so they need to be adjusted. Yeah, looks to me like they need to be adjusted as you take it apart. So you got to check your e-brake. If your e-brake's really low to the floor, or I don't know if you pull up on a handle on this one, we'll look at it in a second, but you want to make sure that it's not like all the way out to grab. So if it's all the way out to grab, that means you need to give this thing 1 or 2 turns, maybe 3, to get it, you know, get the shoes go out a little more. So anyway, a little more complicated, but it's not too bad. You know, it's just, you gotta think about, this thing is a threaded nut. That's a threaded rod down there, and you have to open it up. You know, if you turn it counterclockwise, it's gonna release the threads from here and then make the shoes go out a little more. So you just try and get it to the where you put the rotor on, which is a drum on the inside. Again, this side's a drum, this side's the rotor, so that when you put this on, it goes on first of all, and then it also doesn't drag too much. And so it's a feel thing. Can't really teach you how to feel something, but anyway, that's got to be done while you have it apart. I'll bring you back in when I get on that. I thought I'd show you guys this. Went to open up the brand new pads, and look what's in there. Old, worn out, used ones. Wasn't that nice of somebody? Wow. I'll just take these back to O'Reilly and they'll give me what I need. That's just crap. I just can't believe somebody would do that. You know, my price on these is so cheap, it's just like unbelievable somebody would do that. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. All right, so a little bit of a change of plans here. I got these rotors all cleaned up with brake clean. The surfaces, even the drum side, needs to be done. since they didn't have the correct pads, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this caliper back in using the same tool we did in the front. So I'm just going to put these on with the new rotors, and then I'm going to adjust them. I was feeling they're kind of loose feeling, so anyway, hopefully this works out. I'm just going to set these on here so that they're out of the way. Oh, fun stuff. Drop the washer. That's out of the way. I can pull the pads out. It's really tight. I have to put the pads in from the inside on this side. Oh man, that's a bummer. So I was hoping to get. No, that going the other way. Must be a pain. See how tight they are. They fit pretty tight. They're supposed to fit really tight in there, but not. They should move freely still. If they don't, then they're gonna drag. They're gonna make noise and they're gonna wear out quicker. So the thing is, I want to put them in here, and you see these are really uneven. So they were dragging in the caliper and the thing a little bit because one pad's worn a lot more than the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this piston in all the way on this side. I'll take apart the other side, get it all assembled, so that when I get the pads here, because she has to leave, then I can just throw the pads in and be done. And all I'm going to do is just going to take, I'll just show you guys what I'm going to do so that you don't have to watch the whole thing. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take these pads, I'm going to set them on the caliper or on the tire down there, and what's dripping behind me is water because it's got snow in the bed because she's from the mountains. So I'll put these next to each other. I'll put the new pads down, and I will put the anti-squeal here and here and behind the shims, so it's in the same places. I just use those as a pattern. It's easier to do. I forgot about that, showing you guys the first part, because I'm trying to film. And for filming, I'm not thinking, so it's a little different. It's a lot harder to do. So that's how I'm going to do that, and then I'll just assemble them back on there. Again, I'll use the same stuff. I'll use the black stuff for the Loctite that I use. That way it doesn't come back. They don't back, those bolts don't back out. These ones usually don't in the back for some reason. I don't know why. Some of them do, some don't. Some cars do, some don't. But I just do them as an insurance policy on this portion of the caliper. Hopefully you can see that in frame. This portion of the caliper, I always do a little bit of Loctite on those. And I just use that, the black. It does the same thing as blue Loctite, really. About the same thing. It's just, you know, you don't have to get blue Loctite. You have that stuff laying around for everything. I use that stuff for everything. So I'm just going to show you guys real quick what I'm doing here on the e-brake. Hopefully it's all coming in on frame and all that. Yeah, we're good. And so I've taken the rotor and taking it on and off, and I can feel it's pretty loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it. Let's see. You can do it right through this hole right here. There's a rubber plug in the original one. You can do it through the hole. If I can see where it is, it would be helpful. So I want to go, let's see, which direction I want to go. Well, that's closing it, so I want to go this way. Just a few turns. Just to make sure it's not so loose. I don't want it to drag. different than adjusting brakes. You don't want it to drag at all. So I'm just going to go so that I don't feel it really loose. So I'm going to go. Okay, a couple more turns. Okay, it's not dragging. Well, maybe it is. Don't want it to drag. It's an e-brake, not regular brakes. I'll take it back up just a little bit. Seems like a couple of clicks is all you really need. It might not even need it. Now there's no drag really, it's just you can hear the shoes. That's fine. I think we're good to go. Hey guys, I thought I'd let you know, had a little fiasco with the axle seal on this side, so I had to change that. So it kind of threw off my rhythm for the brakes. And honestly, pull your drums on every one of these and check the axle seals. It's real common on this for them to be bad. So anyway, I'm just gonna, the rear is pretty much the same as the front. I checked the e-brake, it's adjusted perfectly. And then I also filled the differential because it wasn't that low. It just, there was enough seeping out to where it wouldn't seep out. You couldn't notice it anywhere else, but when you pulled the rotor, you could see behind the drum for the brake was just, everything was covered in grease, so it had to be replaced. There's two different styles of them too, so if you watch other videos, make sure you watch the one I post. I'll talk to you on the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.